A new study has found 0 known cases of transmission of COVID-19 from a child under 10 to an adult anywhere in the world. The Royal College of Paediatrics in the UK looked at 78 studies around the world, including contact tracing carried out by the World Health Organisation. The Swiss government now telling grandparents they can hug their grandkids, concluding the risk from children actually passing it on is just so low. Let's get a doctor's take on this now, bringing in Dr Joe Kosteric. Joe, good afternoon to you. Firstly, how do you interpret this study?
Look, good afternoon, Tomo. Look, every week and every day we are learning more about the behaviour of this virus. And I think what this study is telling us, and once again, one can never say it's impossible that there might be a transmission somewhere. But what this study is really telling us is what a number of people have suspected for a while, is that because children get very mild or often no symptoms, they're not likely to be passing it on. And in fact, these studies, and there's 78 of them, have found no evidence of any transmission. Now, human beings being human beings, you've got to think that it'll probably happen to someone somewhere sometime, but it'll be very, very rare. So I think this, is going to start to give us just that little bit more confidence, albeit, we are still learning.
So where did this idea, or we could almost say myth, come from that children are super spreaders?
Yeah, look, there's been a lot of mythology with COVID-19 and coronavirus from the start. And the reason for that is there was a little bit of a vacuum. We've got something new. Now, as we spoke previously, coronaviruses as a group are not new, but this particular strain is new. There's been questions about how it started, where it came from. People have had different ideas. So in that situation, it's very, very easy for stories to start and for myths to spread. So there is really never much basis for it. And I think when the history is recorded on this, when in 6 and 12 and 18 months' time people are writing the story, we'll find that a lot of things that we initially thought to be the case just weren't the case. But you can understand that people have these ideas at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the Swiss government says grandparents can hug their grandchildren. What's your advice as a doctor?
Now, look, in Australia, and even within different states of Australia, we have different advisories. So the Swiss government has formed that view. We know already that the Swedish government has been of the view that people can go to cafes and, maybe not quite carry on as normal, but much closer to it. In WA, children have been encouraged to go back to schools. In Victoria, they haven't. At this stage, hugging of grandchildren by grandparents has not been recommended by the Chief Medical Officer. Now, look, next week, in 2 weeks, in a month, that may well change. And the more of this research that comes out, the more basis we have to make recommendations. But unfortunately, as we stand and sit here today, the advisory in Australia has remained don't do that. But I think in the future, and hopefully not that far off, our advisories will change. But I really want to emphasise, in Australia, notwithstanding what the Swiss government has done, as we sit here at the moment, the advice is still not to do that.
Advice, which it is, and it's sound advice as well. Dr Joe Kosteric, as always, thanks for your time.
Very welcome, Tomo.